And welcome into the Tuesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are presented by Green Ventures Landscaping for homes and businesses that want to stand out, not blend in. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. Hope everybody is off to a wonderful start here on this Tuesday morning. We got a lot going on the program today, and we appreciate you being with us this morning. Ian Safar with us back live at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, happy Tuesday morning to you. Good morning. How are you? How are things going?
Hanging in there.
There we go. Ian, how we doing? What's going on?
Doing okay, thanks. Watched most of last night, but yeah, doing okay. Happy Tuesday, folks.
Happy Tuesday to everybody out there. We are obviously going to get a lot into the Preds today. They lose last night. They are eliminated from playoff contention last night with their loss to San Jose, with LA winning last night against Seattle. So the Predators are done when it comes to the playoff race. They got one more game in the regular season coming up on Thursday, and we're going to get all into that throughout the show. Joe, I do want to start today on this. Just some really sad news yesterday that we saw kind of towards the end of the afternoon when it was announced that Dave McGinnis has passed away at the age of 74. And Dave McGinnis, as we know, obviously a longtime NFL coach. He was an assistant coach here under Jeff Fisher. He was actually interim head coach in L.A. for the Rams. Just kind of a voice around the league that was extremely, extremely popular. He had been in the NFL for a long, long time. And obviously, most recently, had been radio analyst for the Tennessee Titans on their broadcast with Mike Keith and with Taylor Zarzour this past year. And he passes away at the age of 74. He had been battling an illness, and that illness had hospitalized him in early March, and yesterday passing away at the age of 74. So, Joe, I know you've been around Coach Mack. I've been around Coach Mack a little bit. He's an incredibly popular person. He was a guy that I think most people around the league knew who he was, and he made an impact on a lot of these people in some way. And I just got to tell you, he was really, really good at his job in the most recent role that he served with Titans Radio. So just a really sad day yesterday with Dave McGinnis passing away at the age of 74.
Yeah, it's terrible, terrible news. And it's, like you said, I mean, he got sick and went in the hospital and got out. And then it was a really a brief illness and just terrible, terrible news. And I don't know if I can think of a person more like in the NFL. I don't know if there was a more popular person. Yeah. Like every single person in the NFL knew Coach Mack. And if everybody could read friend of the show, Dan Pompei, who, has been covering the NFL forever, but started covering the Chicago Bears as a beat for a long time ago when Coach Mack got his start in the NFL in the 80s. He wrote an obituary. It's free. He tweeted it, but it's free at The Athletic. And it's really worth, reading just all the different ways that Coach Mack, impacted people and he was an incredible guy. And, like everybody probably has stories about Coach Mack. I mean, for me, he helped me so many times. I mean, basically, like if I needed like X's and O's help, shoot, man, I did a Tennessee offense deep dive. I mean, Coach Mack, I was just like, would you just sit with me for an hour and just like go through this stuff with me? I mean, and that's what he was. He would help anybody at any point. And he's still a strong guy at 74 years old. Like you said, he was incredible on Titans radio too. I mean, it's such a loss for so many people. So terrible news. And I would ask, because one thing that I've noticed, see, this is where, Robby, I totally celebrate your decision to get off Twitter, but there are moments where it's like there's like all these stories right now from all these different people about Coach Mack all through the NFL, which is kind of cool. So I would ask if anybody has, anything like that, leave it on the text line, leave it on the YouTube chat. We'll revisit that today because I know people have stories because like the guy just owned every room he walked into and just like had time for everybody. He had time for everybody. Really special person.
Yep, began his coaching career in the NFL in 1986 at the age of 35. He was the linebackers coach with the Chicago Bears, and then ultimately became defensive coordinator with the Cardinals. He was head coach of the Cardinals back in 2001, and then obviously his time here with Jeff Fisher with the Tennessee Titans, where he was the assistant head coach with coach of the linebackers all throughout that. Where the Titans followed Jeff over to St. Louis with the Rams, and then ultimately in LA with the Rams, where his coaching career finished in 2016. So you're talking about from 1986 to 2016 coaching in the NFL. That's a long time to be coaching in the National Football League. And then obviously the most recently spending more time here as a radio analyst with the Tennessee Titans. So did a great job with that. Amy Adams Strunk put out statement yesterday. Burke Nihill put out statements yesterday from the Tennessee Titans. And like I said, I mean, I've seen some local people here who obviously have worked very closely with Dave McGinnis over the past few years, just kind of express how much he meant to them. And the thing that's amazing, and I saw, Burke Nihill talking about this on the Titans website, he had no broadcasting experience. And I know Mike Keith talked about this too. In a story that Jim Wyatt has put together. There's no broadcasting experience that he had, obviously. Like he had been a coach in the NFL, but everybody knew that if he did the job and he became, a radio analyst, that he would be really, really good at it. And it didn't take long listening to Coach Mack to realize that, that personality that he's got, and it's kind of a combination when you're listening to a game of you get all the X's and O's that you're looking for. You get kind of that live emotion of the reaction immediately to a play that is absolutely hilarious that you could be listening to. And he knew when to get in there and crack a joke too. So as a listener and as somebody who, obviously valued his opinion pretty highly, like he's absolutely hilarious. And he was so good, I think, in his second career around here locally on the radio part of things, of connecting with an audience and being able to explain what was going on out there in field and kind of put it in terms where your everyday person could understand what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Great with X's and O's. He could give you that stuff, but then he'd have like some like saying about like a frog in Texas and what I mean. By the way, he was a horned frog, a very proud horned frog. But he'd have some saying, you're like, what? Did he make that up, or like, is that actually a saying? Or actually, he was actually from Kansas, but he went to high school in Texas. But I mean, another thing about him is, obviously he was he was here long time. I mean, he obviously coached with Jeff Fisher, and then he was the assistant head coach when he went on to St. Louis and then LA. But I mean, he had the Bears job. Everybody in Chicago wanted him to be the Bears coach, and they just completely screwed up. Like they talked about it publicly before they told him.
Yeah. And
it was like this whole, and so he ended up turning them down. And he was the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals after he went. It was DC, but like those teams just were so bad. I mean, most people who are head coach of the Arizona Cardinals don't have a lot of a chance, like historically, which is unbelievable, but it's just true. It's too bad, that he didn't have a better, like opportunity than that. That was his one shot as a head coach, 17-40, just really, not talented teams. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I remember when Frank Wycheck had to step down, and it was, I mean, it was just, I feel like Mike Keith, you say this stuff and it's not like I'm going around comparing I can't sit here and say I listen to all the other NFL radio teams, quite a few of them, but of course you can't truthfully say that you could compare that. But I'd argue that Mike Keith and Dave McGinnis, I can't imagine it could be much better than that combination. And so, I mean, from that perspective, Titans fans had it good for a while. And then, there's some teams out there where like the radio team is it just obviously there's so many different ways to follow games now. People can stream the games on TV, right? I mean, like so some of them don't have that connection, I think, to that maybe they all used to, but this one did. And it was so much about what Coach Mack did on the air.
Yeah, very sad news yesterday. Dave McGinnis passing away at the age of 74. So as a show, I think I can speak for all of us. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family, with the Titans, and with everybody who Coach Mack came in contact with, because that list, as you know, Joe, is very long of people that he came in contact with, and it's a life well lived and a job well done by Dave McGinnis. So we will take your stories on Coach Mack throughout the show on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Dave McGinnis passing away at the age of 74, announced yesterday, and a lot of reaction pouring in on that. We will transition. We will get into the Predators coming up next. They lose last night to the San Jose Sharks, and LA wins, which means the Predators are eliminated from playoff contention. We'll get into the game last night, and throughout this hour and the show, ask about what's next for the Nashville Predators and how should the next general manager proceed when that process is completed. We will get into all of that throughout the show today. Adam Sparks will be with us at 7 o'clock from the Knoxville News Sentinel. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025 on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let's head to our phone line. Welcome in our friend Adam in Portland to the program. Adam, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Well, that was a really nice intro by both of you. But, dude, I'm gutted with that news yesterday. And it just, especially just out of nowhere. And I was telling Ian, I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do over there, man. Because I talked to Coach Mac probably 100 times. I mean, you know me, I'm always doing this stuff. But I don't know what they're going to do. Losing Mike Keith and then losing Dave McGinnis the next year is – that's hard, man. And I mean, I don't really even like the new guy, but they need to figure that thing out. But yeah, like super insightful guy. And he's also like one of those dudes that you feel like is, I don't know. He's like the dude from Houston, like super knowledgeable, but also like the nicest guy you're ever going to talk to and approachable. So I don't know, man. Yeah, this one stings. I can remember through the years the day that we lost all these different guys as far as like Mac and losing Floyd, and this one right here is just right up there with it. Just took my wind out.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the call, Adam. Just a sad news. And, you know, like I said, Joe, I mean, you know, obviously I was not that close with Coach Max. I didn't know that he was in the hospital, right? So I had no idea. So I was sitting in the press box yesterday at Bridgestone Arena, and that news came across, and I was like, what? It just kind of took the wind out of me a little bit.
Yeah. No, the thing, you know, like what Adam said there, and we've been talking about, but it's like, I think a good way to describe Coach Mack is like, he was a guy who like was always grateful. And I think that's why he was the way he was. I mean, like, that's just his personality, but like, he understood that, like, you know, yeah, he's a smart football guy. He loves football. Football's life, but it's able to be the life it provides because of the people who care about football teams. Right? I mean, it's a simple thing, but like some people, I think, lose sight of that. He never lost sight of that, and so like again, it's just like the always having time for people and always having gratitude and appreciation, understanding that his life, you know, was made possible because people care about this stuff.
Yep, for sure. So we'll continue to take your thoughts and your stories on Coach Mack throughout the show. 615-737-1025. Joe, the Preds lose last night 3-2 to the San Jose Sharks. And Macklin Celebrini with 2 goals, including an empty netter. Predators didn't get much going at all offensively throughout the game until it was too late later in the game. Evangelista scores twice in the game, but they lose in regulation last night. And then the double whammy, Joe, of – you know, I was watching. I had in the third period down in the media room, I had obviously Preds game on the TV behind me, and then on the TV in front of me, I had LA and Seattle going on. And it became pretty apparent quickly in that game that LA was going to beat Seattle. Now, Seattle made a run of it in the third period, but LA wins the game last night, which means the Nashville Predators officially eliminated from playoff contention. And they didn't know that for sure in the immediate aftermath of the game, but they knew that, if that makes any sense. And here's what Predators head coach Andrew Brunette had to say of kind of what he was feeling sitting up there at the podium last night after the loss.
Yeah, I think you feel gutted. You know, I think everything we went through as a group put ourselves in position to play this game tonight. And, you know, you're disappointed that we didn't get the result, and probably disappointed in, you know, we really didn't get to our game fast enough. And we played the margins late when you're down 2, and we know how that story usually goes. And give the group, it's been an amazing group, tons of credit, and we still fought. We fought to the end. I think Halsey, it could have went either way there on that tip, and you know, we got ourselves in overtime, and it's been our season really, and it didn't work out tonight. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of room for any error, if any. A little bit of a miracle for us to get in, but we'll keep pushing. This one hurts. It to see probably hurts one of the most of my career, playing, coaching, just how much we went through it together, how much belief there was, and how we stuck together through all kinds of different things, and just fell short. You know, I always say it's tough to beat a team 3 times, and a 9-game span or whatever it was, and they got the bounce, or they got the play tonight that we didn't get.
That was Brunette after the game. Predators lose to the Sharks. By the way, it's the first time since December the 10th of 2019. So, I mean, it's been a long time since the Predators lost to the Sharks. That would have been the 16th win in a row against the Sharks last night had the Predators been able to get it. And obviously, I mean, it comes at a really bad time. Joe, it was I don't know if it was the moment being too big. I don't know if they were gripping the sticks too tight. They just couldn't get anything going in the game for really just all of it. Like, until it was 2-0 and you felt like it was over. They get the goal to cut it to 2-1 by Evangelista, but that was about 55 minutes into the game, right? Like that's too late, and you're not getting much going offensively before that. And you make it 2-1. Celebrini adds an empty netter. It's 3-1, and then all of a sudden Evangelista scores again and cuts it to 3-2. You had a couple of looks. You heard Brunette in that clip mention a tip by Eric Halla that was close. I mean, it could have gone in, but it didn't. And then you find yourself at the end of it, dejected. And we'll get to some comments from Ryan O'Reilly here in just a minute. But I mean, that's about as emotional as I've seen him after the loss. And we know that based on some conversations we've had, that's saying something after a loss for Ryan O'Reilly. So, Joe, it's just it's a tough way to go. I think there was a lot of excitement in the building last night leading up to the game. And then, unfortunately, there just wasn't a whole lot to really cheer about throughout most of the game last night.
Yeah, tough way to finish. Tough way to end it. You want to go out with your best, and that was not their best. So it's like sometimes you in a game like this, you tip your cap to the opponent. And I think in this one, there's a little bit of regret that they just couldn't find, like you said, they couldn't find their game, couldn't really manufacture much. You had the goalie decision that we talked about yesterday. I mean, I think he went the right way with that, and I don't think that's if we're sitting here today talking about a 5-2 loss or something, maybe that's a lot of the discussion, right? Because you're going to second guess anything that doesn't work. But, I think that was the right way to go. And when it comes down to it, this team made things interesting way, way longer than we would have guessed late in the fall. So you have to appreciate that for sure. I guess the people who have been mad that they're trying to make the playoffs can celebrate now because they're not in the playoffs.
Well, they're not in the playoffs. Like I think this is a case of a couple of things being true at the same time. Like I think the players in the locker room, the veteran guys especially, I think they deserve a lot of credit for staying in the fight and getting themselves back in the situation and making this last week, actually meaningful. Now, they didn't play the way they wanted to last night, and I was surprised by how off they were last night, I guess is the way I'd put it. So, that part of it is disappointing, but all in all, the players, I think, deserve a lot of credit, after the trade deadline, when you start shipping people out of here, to stick with it and get yourself in a situation where you have games that actually matter in the last week of the regular season. I think that's true. I also think it's true that, if you're a fan, you're looking at this, you're being like, all right, so we kind of sold at the trade deadline, but we didn't totally sell at the trade deadline. And then we ended up not making the playoffs and missing out on it by who knows what the final margin is going to end up being here. We'll see what that looks like. But by 2 games, you're missing out on the playoffs. And then you're going to end up, I think right now they're 10th from the bottom in the league. So what is that going to mean for the draft? We'll see. But I understand that thought of it too. If you're a fan looking at this, okay, well, you went kind of halfway in, halfway out, and you don't make the playoffs. And now, we'll see how the lottery goes. But right now you're scheduled to be picking 10th. So great. What's that going to be?
Yeah. James on the YouTube chat says it's almost poetic that it was a loss to the Sharks. That team did a rebuild and is on their way up, and we are perpetually stuck in the middle. A lot of the word middle will be used and has been used.
Yep. And look, on the goalie front real quick, Like Onanen, I thought made some big saves last night in the game. The first goal he gave up was not good, right? Like it's a save that he needs to make, and it was one of those ones where San Jose's on the power play, and the puck it looked like he had it for a second, and then it kind of squeaked through and got in the back of the net. So that's probably one he wants back. But the bottom line is, you can't basically be a no-show offensively for 53 minutes of a game and think that you're going to win. Like it ain't going to happen in the NHL most nights. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The Preds have been eliminated from playoff contention. So what is next? How should the next general manager proceed when that person is hired? We will take your thoughts on that. We will hear from Ryan O'Reilly after last night's game. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Preds lose last night 3-2 to the San Jose Sharks. The LA Kings win in Seattle, and that means the Nashville Predators' postseason hopes are gone. They have been eliminated from postseason contention, and the LA Kings have clinched a spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It was a very dejected Predators locker room last night, Joe Rexrode, as you can imagine, after the game. And here was what Ryan O'Reilly had to say after the game last night.
Yeah, we got what we deserve. Just didn't start the way we needed to, and got down and just couldn't find a way back. It's been a miracle now. It's disappointing. Personally, as a group too, it's just another. It's brutal.
What were you seeing, I guess, that just took so long to get going offensively tonight?
I wish I had an answer for it. I know myself down the stretch have been pretty garbage, and there's opportunities there we need to capitalize on. Or not going to win if we don't score, and it took us way too long to do that. So it kind of falls on myself, and just got to find a way to spark some offense. And it might not have been hard enough from the Nets, and many things going to it, but it's just downright disappointing.
And you guys just talked about, the push to get back in this here. Just you got this one in game 81. Just how do you kind of sum up the disappointment you're feeling right now?
I don't know. I'm still pretty emotional right now about everything was right there for us, but I know. I don't know what to think. It's just it's just disappointing.
Emotional Ryan O'Reilly after the game there. He did once again refer to himself as garbage down the stretch. So
Of course.
Every time he does that, I have to look away because I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. But last night, pretty somber in there. Ryan O'Reilly, it kind of sounded like the whole time he was on the verge of tears. And it was obviously a tough loss for Ryan O'Reilly personally last night. And we've talked about O'Reilly a ton. I think he played fine down the stretch. But the bottom line is, it was him. Stamkos had a couple decent looks last night on a one-timer. He sent one wide. He sent another one that kind of fanned off the stick early in the game. Stamkos made a great play behind the net. O'Reilly got a look in front of the net on the backhand, and Nedeljkovic was able to make the save. And really after that, they just didn't get a whole lot until late in the third period. And that's just it's hard to win when you go that long without generating much offense at all. So it's a tough way to go out if you're the Predators. And now I think everybody's attention kind of shifts, Joe. And it's like, all right, well, you've got the last game of the regular season and what I assume is going to be the last game of, the Barry Trotz tenure. And they're going to find a general manager here over the next couple of weeks at some point by the time the draft comes around. And then the question really boils down to, Joe, what do they do? How should the next general manager proceed? Because I think there's a lot of different things that could be on the table, right? There's, depending on who you hire, that there could be, he could look at this group of veterans that they have and say, there's a lot of 30-year-olds, mid-30-year-olds in here that I got to find a way to offload, right? I got to find a way to start moving some of these guys. And even maybe some of them who have no movement clause. I got to start having some of those conversations. There could be a general manager candidate, Joe, that looks at it and says, you know what? They have a pretty deep prospect pool. We just talked last week about how Scott Wheeler had them ranked in the top 5. They got a pretty deep prospect pool already. It's not like there's a ton of young players I need to go out and necessarily acquire. They're in the organization. Let's leave a lot of these older guys around and infuse more young talent into the lineup next year. I don't know what the next general manager is going to do, but that's my question I pose to Predators fans today. I pose to you. I pose to everyone. How should the next general manager proceed now that we are, I guess, officially kind of looking ahead to what is coming next for the Nashville Predators?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think that there's definitely, and I understand it, there's definitely the commenter on YouTube, there's a team that went through the pure misery of just absolute break it, strip it to the studs, and now they're ascending. Cam here on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Another mediocre season. Players did play hard. Coaching and upper management failed the fans and the players. We have to alter our future. There's no such thing as a competitive rebuild. We have a top 5 prospect pool. Dive further into that and rebuild for the future. So I assume dive further into that means, I guess, try to move as many veterans as you can and just try to be young on the ice and more opportunity for them and lean into that. To your point, I know it's not exciting because you might end up with just like a middling season that could flirt with the postseason, which I know I think that pisses people off because it's like, well, wait, we are signed up for the mushy middle. But again, you could philosophically look at it and say, yeah, but see, I want these young guys to actually be around veterans who are good. We are paying these guys to play hockey for us. What's wrong with, basically fielding the same team or roughly the same team and then trying to get more and more young guys in and waiting for some of these guys to arrive?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that's part of the decision that they're going to have to make here. One texter says the first thing the new general manager should do is trade Marchessault and then get Brady Shea so far away from the Nashville Predators organization that he's not even allowed to own a pedal tavern in the United States. That might be the worst free agent signing in Nashville sports history. This is from an unnamed texter on the text line. Well, I would say this. I think for the next general manager, moving Jonathan Marchessault this offseason needs to be a priority. Like, it hasn't worked. And Stamkos, to his credit, it worked. I know, Marchessault had a tough year from the standpoint of like he had to fight through a couple of injuries, and I think that derailed some of it. But, other than, maybe a 5 or 6 game stretch here or 3 or 4 stretch game there, it just really hadn't worked with Jonathan Marchessault. And this year was no different. And as he's made very clear, he's got a no move. So there's a limited, I guess, amount of things that you can do with that if you're a new general manager coming in. But I would probably sit down whenever that time comes with Jonathan Marchessault. And, in the offseason, I think it's easier to do than it is at the NHL trading deadline. Like, I think, working to facilitate a trade of Marchessault would be one of my priorities if I'm the general manager this offseason. Brady Shea ain't going anywhere. Like, Brady Shea's got a lot of term left on his deal, and he's getting paid $7 million a year. So, like, I don't think Brady Shea's going anywhere, and I don't think you're deep enough into the contract where you start even entertaining the idea of buying him out or anything like that.
Yeah. And as far as worst free agent signing, I mean, you got to have a little context for that too. Worst free agent signing in Nashville sports history. I mean, there's some real strong contenders you need to consider on that front. Ethan from Lawrenceburg says trading Saros is my number one goal for the new GM. That's a terrible contract in the next few years. As we've discussed, he has trade protection. I mean, would he waive it for for an opportunity for maybe like a team that could contend, or if they wanted to do it, I would think that he would. But again, who are you finding that wants that? I mean, you're asking for a lot of years. Is there a team out there that could see him as the answer, and it's like, we'll take the back end, buy it out, whatever, but for the next 2-3 years, he could be the difference for us in winning? I mean, if he'd been playing better, I think that's more likely, right?
Well, I don't know how's the new general manager going to view that?
And and the new general manager may have no interest. I'm just saying if he did.
Yeah, I mean, if he did,
is it really feasible?
I think it's going to be tough. And it has more to do with the term than it does the money. I mean, it's just a long time to commit to a goalie that's in his 30s, and I just think it's not. I'm not saying it's impossible. I've seen some odd trades happen in the NHL when it comes to the offseason. So maybe that does happen at that point. But, when you're the new general manager coming into it, how do you view that situation? Onanen, the way he played down the stretch, I thought was really good. I mean, look, at this point, my guess is Saros is going to get Thursday to close it out. And it's a meaningless game for the Predators. It actually is probably going to be pretty meaningful for the Ducks, kind of depending on what happens. We're trying to hold off the Kings, in the race for third in the Pacific here. So we'll see kind of what happens on that front. But like, I just think if you're the general manager, there's a lot that you look at with this franchise that I think your opinions could go several different ways on. Like, pretty clearly, Barry Trotz loves Ryan O'Reilly, and I understand why a general manager would love Ryan O'Reilly. Ryan O'Reilly's got 1 year left on his contract. I still think there's pretty good value you could get by trading him this offseason. there's also probably some general managers out there that look at him and say, all right, come July 1st, we're going to sign him to a 2 or 3 year extension, right? So, like, I don't know what that's going to look like on the Ryan O'Reilly front. The Saros goaltending part of this, I think, is a big question, right? Like, if you're the general manager evaluating your prospect pool, like how much do you factor in for your plan this offseason of some of these young guys being a part of your team next year? Like, are you penciling in Brady Martin in your lineup, right? Like, there's a lot that the new GM is going to have to figure out. And I think there's a lot that's kind of in the eye of the beholder that, particularly, Joe, if you go outside the organization, I have no idea how people outside the organization coming into this are going to view all that, which in some ways, I guess, is exciting if you're a Predators fan.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely time for fresh take on some things around here. Liam McLeod says we should just lean into the middle, rename them the Middle Tennessee Predators, trade away all the wing players, block off all the aisle seats at Bridgestone. You know what? I kind of like that, Liam. All middle, all the time.
There you go. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. More thoughts to get to on the Predators. What should the next general manager do? How should the next general manager proceed now with the Nashville Predators missing out on the playoffs for the second consecutive year? And a lot of older guys on the roster, particularly in elevated roles, that you got to figure out what to do with. We'll take your thoughts on all that. Adam Sparks will be with us at 7 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Tee it up with us at the 5th annual 615 Open coming up May the 28th at Hermitage Golf Course. We are supporting Folds of Honor to help them fund life-changing scholarships for families of America's fallen heroes. You can register now to play or sponsor at 615open.com. Adam Sparks will be with us at 7 o'clock, taking your thoughts on the Preds at 615-737-1025. So, Joe, we've thrown the question out there about the general manager of, what all is coming next. Once they make the general manager hire, how should that general manager proceed? And a lot of it, has to do obviously with the roster, the players, the farm system, all those things. Well, Joe, the most immediate decision that the general manager is going to have to make is, what do you do with this coaching staff? What do you do with Andrew Burnett? And what does that look like? And look, depending on who they hire, I have no idea if whoever they hire is going to have like a head coach immediately in mind that they want to come with them. If they're open to the idea of Andrew Burnett sticking around for another year, and then you kind of see where things go from there. Like, I have no idea how they're going to, approach that from the standpoint of their thought process. How do you view, I guess, the Andrew Burnett in totality, who is now 3 years deep into his head coaching tenure with the Nashville Predators? And how do you think somebody who, I don't know who they're going to hire, but my presumption is it's going to be somebody outside the organization with either no or limited ties to Andrew Burnett. We'll see what that looks like. How do you view that if you're an incoming general manager candidate?
Well, I think if you look closely at the thing is, if you're an incoming GM candidate, are you actually coming in with an open mind about the sitting head coach, or are you coming in like knowing that you have someone in mind? So the incoming GM may not think much about it, right? I mean, that's possible, yeah. Right? Like, the incoming GM may not care, like, hey, good job, congrats, good luck to you. But if you're an incoming GM candidate who doesn't have a strong feeling on this, this person or these 2 or 3 people, one of them is going to be my head coach, then I think you look at Andrew Burnett's tenure. And I think overall you have to be impressed. I think not like overly impressed, but I mean, it's not like the results are great, but I do feel like this particular season, if you track the whole thing, excuse me, I mean, I think that you'd have to tip the cap and give some respect to what he was able to do as a coach. And overall, I don't think he's had great teams to coach. I don't want to sit here and like pawn everything off on other people. I'm not doing that, but I think Andrew Burnett has done a good job. So if you are open-minded about your head coach, I think you'd have to consider him. I just have my doubts that that's going to be the case.
I do too. Like, it's a natural thing. And we talked about this the moment that Barry Trotz decided to step down, right? Like, it's a natural thing when you hire a new general manager that at some point in the not too distant future, they're going to go bring in their own coaching hire, especially in this league, right? Like in the NHL where coaches get turned over all the time. Like, yeah. I know that hasn't been the case with the Predators, but for a lot of the league, that is the case. So I do wonder what it looks like. Like, Burnett's an interesting case study because, I mean, if you just go the simple route and break it down by like the years that he's here, I thought the first year, I mean, he was a Jack Adams finalist. They got him to the playoffs when nobody before the season really picked him to make it at that point. And then the second year, there's all these expectations. And as we know, they just fall flat on their face, and he didn't do a very good job. And then this year, it's kind of been 2 different years. Like, it started off as a disaster, and they were the worst team in the league on December the 1st. And then they stuck with him, and we know what happened since then. They went and put together a really good run, and they're going to come up just short of making the playoffs. So it's been kind of 3 different years in terms of how it's played out. The one thing that's been consistent every year is they've started incredibly slow. Like, they just have. And, even his first year, they started slow. And I think a lot of the explanation given for that was, well, it's a new system. It's a totally different way of playing, and it just takes some time. And there was probably some validity to that. But when you get into year 2 and year 3 and you just start slow every year, that's a problem. So, like, my guess is This is totally a guess. Like, my guess is that, new general manager's probably going to come in and bring their own head coach with them. Like, that's probably going to be what happens. I don't know that. That's just totally me speculating, but that's, it's just based on how the league generally works. I mean, we saw it the one time the Predators have changed general managers from David Poyle to Barry Trotz. That's what he did. I mean, he brought in his own head coach with him.
Eventually, yeah. Like right now, I might put it like 90-10 that it's going to be a new coach. I mean, it'd be pretty surprising if the new GM comes in and sticks with Andrew Brunette. Like you said, it's like a really impressive first season, rough second season. And again, you can go in if you want, and it's like you can blame Trotz more for that if you want, for sure. Obviously the additions everybody was excited about, it was kind of disastrous to the point where early this season, right? I mean, I think a lot of teams probably fire Andrew Brunette at a certain point, and it didn't happen. Trotz stuck with him, and again, I think the response from there puts a different spin on his entire tenure as coach, but not necessarily enough to where new GMs coming in and saying, "Well, I got it. That guy's got to be my coach."
Right.
It's just hard to imagine anyone coming into this job, whether it's someone who's been a GM or someone who's been a number two, that they wouldn't have at least a couple people in mind, that they've been in organizations with in terms of being a coach, or as like you say in this league, or just a retread that they really want to be the coach, because that happens a lot too.
Well, and again, as we kind of wrap up this portion of the conversation, what does the general manager want to do? Like, does he want to go with this really, really young team over the next 3 years? Does he think that they're somewhat close to get back in the playoffs? Like, I don't know. Like, I think that all that factors into what you want to do at head coach as well. So we will get back into this later in the show in terms of the general manager, the options that are in front of him, what to do with Andrew Burnett, all that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Adam Sparks from the Knoxville News Sentinel will be with us coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning, taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Talking a little Tennessee Vols, and to help us do that, we head to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Adam Sparks from the Knoxville News Sentinel to the program. Adam, good morning. How are you?
Good, guys. How you guys doing?
Doing awesome, man.
All
Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So, Adam, I guess thankfully for you, way less dramatic of a spring this time than it was a year ago when we had the Nico stuff going on. So that part's good. So on the quarterback front, you know, as you wrote the other day, like the spring portal doesn't exist. Heupel knows what his quarterback room is going to be, and it's going to be a young one. You've got George McIntyre. You've got Faison Brandon, who I think most fans want to see one of those two guys be the quarterback. And depending on who you ask, or you get different answers for who. But what's your sense coming out of the spring here of where things stand on the quarterback front and the job in front of Josh Heupel to get one or both of those guys ready to go by the time the fall comes around?
Yeah, I think what matters most is that Josh Heupel does not know who his starter is. He doesn't. I don't even think he knows percentages at this point. You know, I mean, if they play tomorrow, it's George McIntyre, most likely, just because he has a little better grasp of what they need to do aside from just throwing the ball. He knows a little better of how to get them into the right run play. He understands the protections more, and that's just because he's been here a year. Now that gap, I think, is closed a little bit during spring practice. And if you watch the spring game, or I mean, I've seen it up firsthand too, that you can see Faison Brandon has like the physical tools that could sell a coach on putting him out there, despite not knowing the full playbook yet. So there's a reasonable argument for either of them. I think at this point, neither looks like an SEC starter. I mean, I just think neither of them are ready yet. They have 4.5 months to get ready. I do think in a weird way that Josh Heupel seems to be at ease with this. I think he was exhausted by the offseason. You know, he likes to sit his quarterbacks down, and transparency is important to him. So anytime there's a big decision with the quarterbacks, he always brings them together in a room and tells them together, not individually. And I think he was exhausted from having to do that, in December, and then again in January, and then after the portal closed, telling these guys, you're competing for the starting job. Oh, wait, I got to bring in Sam Levitt, and we're calling Brendan Sorsby, and well, here comes Bo Prabula, and okay, we're guys, you're competing to start now. The portal is closed. Oh wait, Joey Aguilar, and I think he was just exhausted by having to do that over and over and over. His options, we don't know if he has good options or not right now. He has two very talented young quarterbacks, but neither has really played. But I think there's a comfort level with Josh Heupel, because sometimes his best coaching jobs as quarterbacks has been when he's been backed into a corner, like Joey Aguilar last year. Like, hey, here's your quarterback, figure out how to make it work. And he has two options right now, and there's nobody in the portal isn't open, so he can't go get somebody else. And I think he kind of likes that he doesn't have to make that decision.
No, that makes sense. Of course, obviously, these guys are going to get better, like you said, Adam. I guess if Brandon is sitting, I assume that can't be a shocking thing for him. Like you could easily talk to any incoming freshman quarterback in college football and say, look around at any program you want, at any 5-star you want. It's rare to see, the freshman start at this point. But my question is, if it flips around and he, and he ends up overtaking McIntyre, what does that do? How does McIntyre react to that?
Well,
that's where you're in trouble as a coach anymore, right? Is they even having any kind of depth at the position.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're on the right course there. If Faison did not start right away, I think he could still see a path to the starting job late in the season, certainly the following season. But the way that in the portal era, I mean, I think everybody understands this. And it's funny, I talked to a lot of fans that, when Nico came in and all that, they still didn't have a full understanding about how this would work. And everybody wanted to, well, how do we keep these two quarterbacks, but also play this quarterback? And I think most people have an understanding now. I talked to a lot of people this week. They were like, so whoever loses the job is gone, right? And my answer is, yeah, eventually, probably. Like, I don't see a world where George McIntyre and Faison Brandon are both here a year from now and both happy. I mean, this could work out a number of different ways. But if George started the season and played really well and was obviously their starting quarterback for the following year, it may be tough to keep Faison around, but you could probably still do it. If Faison ends up with the job by the end of the year and it's clear that he's the starter moving forward, I can't imagine that George would be back. That he would leave. He would leave the next time the portal's open in January. There's maybe an in between there where they waffle between the two guys, and it's not clear at the end of the year who it is, and so maybe you could stretch that into the next season. But I don't think anybody knows that. I do think Josh Heupel absolutely does not want to play. He does not want a pre-plan of I'm going to alternate and play both guys. He doesn't want to do that. But I think there's a reasonable argument that he could end up starting one guy, playing him, and then maybe a game or two games in, it's not working, and then going to the other guy. I mean, he was forced into that with Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker in 21. I think you could see that. I think you could see one guy start the season, but maybe by the time you get to the Texas game in week 4, it may be the other guy.
So, Adam, we saw the Boo Carter situation last year, obviously take place in the offseason, linger into the early part in training camp, and really, I mean, frankly, lingered into the entire year last year. And now you've got Chaz Coleman, who was their big prize in the transfer portal, edge rusher coming in from Penn State, missing time and missing the spring game due to off-the-field issues. So what's your sense for, kind of what's going on there, and why are we seeing these problems, I guess, persist right now with Tennessee? How can Josh Heupel, I guess, put a stop to that?
I mean, these problems have always happened in college football. They're more visible now because these guys are getting paid, and there's less apologists, I would say, like in the fan base and around the team than there used to be because these guys are getting paid. Before you'd always have a guy that didn't show up to camp or was out for a while at spring, and nobody knew if it was an injury or not, and then you would have people sort of explain it behind the scenes, and some people would say, well, okay, we'll be patient with it. Now it's, well, no, that guy's making 7 figures. He needs to be at work tomorrow. That's sort of the different discussion now. I'll say these are different situations. A year ago, Nico didn't show up at spring because his camp wanted more money and a few other things, and that didn't happen. Boo Carter didn't show up to workouts last summer because he didn't want to. I mean, he didn't think he had to. And then Chaz Coleman is a different deal. I mean, there's so much I kind of know but don't know for sure. I think Josh Heupel probably put it the best way he could. It's a personal matter. There's some homesickness there. There's some doubt of whether or not I think he wants to play football long term. The cynic, I think, or the fan could look at that and say, well, why didn't you figure that out before you got here? Or even more so, why did the 3 Penn State coaches that came with you, who coached you last year, not be able to tell Josh Heupel, hey, there may be a red flag with this guy? Not in behavior or anything criminal or anything like that. Just, we don't know if he really wants to continue playing or not. I think that's what they're trying to figure out. I do think the longer this goes, the better chance that Chaz Coleman is good to go. Because every sense that I get is he needs to get to the season. He needs to have games. He needs to have, something on Saturday to look forward to. And there are a lot of players, by the way, like that. It just is usually not this visible unless it's a 5-star portal guy who's getting paid a lot of money to be here.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to bring that nuance and like these are different situations, but I also like I do get, and maybe it's not fair, but even like the stuff we saw with James Pierce and stuff, I mean, I guess maybe a little bit of a wide ranging like, are you vetting people well enough? Again, is that fair? I don't know, but I understand people having those questions, right? Because it just does seem like there's a stream of things, even if they are different situations.
Yeah, I mean, it does make this one different, like I said, because three coaches and what, two other teammates were coming in with him. So it wasn't that hard to like walk down the hall and say, tell me everything about this guy, his family, how much does he love football, his work ethic, all that. I mean, if this was another portal guy, I would say, well, what are you going to learn when a guy comes in for 8 hours, and you maybe call a couple people about him. With Chaz Coleman, there were a lot of resources around to look into this, and the money element is weird too, because I know a lot of numbers have been thrown around, but I don't know for certain what his NIL pay is, but it's really high. He was the number one edge rusher in the portal. Every SEC school and Ohio State and Miami and everybody else wanted him. So he's getting a lot of money to play at Tennessee. I do think that's another element you have to think about on the player side. Let's just say in this situation that a player is not 100% sure if they love football, so to speak, or they want to play long term, or if they want to put everything that you have to put into it. And by the way, it's really demanding at Tennessee right now with the new strength coach. It's not like it was like 2 months ago. Very demanding. So do you want to do what is essentially that full-time job plus go to school? And I do think in the element of money on the player side, it really puts a new wrinkle into that, because in days past, if you said, no, I'm not sure, you kind of float away and nobody thinks about you anymore. But now it's, well, you're making over $1 million. So, you're not sure you want to do it, maybe get sure. it's a way that I think maybe the players around, family and friends and all that certainly would push you in that direction more than it would, in years past.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Adam, great stuff as always, man. Always appreciate your time and your willingness to come on with us. We will talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, guys. You have a good one.
You as well. Yeah. Adam Sparks from the Knoxville News Sentinel, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We will react to what Adam had to say. We will get into the Chaz Coleman story out of Knoxville in Tennessee. We'll get into the quarterback competition, all of it. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Today, Vanderbilt baseball takes on Lipscomb. First pitch at 6 o'clock. You can catch all the action on 94.9 The Fan. Coverage presented by Gary Force Acura. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Presented by Green Ventures Landscaping. Outdoor patios, landscaping design, lawn maintenance, and more. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. Appreciate Adam Sparks from the Knoxville News Sentinel for being with us in the last segment. Joe, for those who may have missed it, Chaz Coleman, who was a prized edge rusher prospect coming in from Penn State, which a lot of Penn State elements on this Tennessee defense this year, has missed the spring and missed the orange and white game the other day due to off-the-field issues. And we just heard a little bit more about that from Adam Sparks in the last segment there. So, Joe, when you look at it in totality, right? You've got all the Nico stuff, which was happening basically a year ago right now. You had the Boo Carter stuff into the offseason where he didn't show up to workouts. He got suspended from the team, and then, he basically got, gradually worked into training camp as last season began. And frankly, as we've talked about with Boo Carter, it was always a problem last year. You could see it. And I don't think his teammates liked him all that much. There was a lot going on the Boo Carter front. So you had Heupel dealing with that last year. And now you've got the Chaz Coleman situation about, I guess whether or not he's going to keep playing football or what that looks like. So to your question that you asked Adam, which I think is a really good one, does Tennessee, does Josh Heupel, does his staff, do they have a problem right now of properly either evaluating a situation with a player or vetting or whatever you want to call it? Is that a point of concern at this point? Because on the one hand, Joe, it's college football, and to a certain degree, you're always dealing as a head coach in college football with some level of off the field stuff. Shout out to our boy Kirby down there that's running a drag racing department. But you're always dealing with something when it comes to a head coach with 18 to 22, 23, 24-year-olds off the field. So are these just isolated incidents? Is this, a run of bad luck with some of these? How do you view the Tennessee part of this when it comes to Heupel and their evaluation of some of these players?
I think the question is totally fair to bring up because, again, we're sitting here with the spring and it's the big portal score is not taking part. It's hard to me. It's hard to look at that and not ask the question, what is going on? What are these guys missing? But you dig deeper, and again, I included Pierce just because, and obviously his situation is terrible right now, post Tennessee. But you go back to his senior year and some of the rumblings, or not his senior, I guess it would have been his junior year, right? And some of the rumblings, and then the rumblings around the draft. Look, the guy, we've talked about it, he was tough to deal with. Okay. Yeah. But then you also look at that and it's okay, so you're not taking that talent. With Nico, it's all this stuff with the dad, and everything and the fake agent and the ridiculousness of last spring. But you're not taking that kid when you have a chance to get him. And of course, Tennessee was on the forefront of NIL, by the way, an $8 million deal. But you're not taking that kid. What would give you any pause about him? Quarterback dads, that's a totally separate member of society. The quarterback dad, it is it's not independent to Nico. Yeah. So again, go through each of them. Boo Carter, again, a tremendous talent. In all these cases, those three guys you're talking about, and with Chaz Coleman too, you're talking about at some point, it's talent is just, if it's at a certain level, a lot of coaches are going to overlook a lot of things or maybe miss things. With Boo Carter, like you said, man, it just, his teammates didn't like him. But I don't remember that being a thing before last offseason,
No.
So, and now you have this.
Then he quit on him, right? It changed.
Yeah. And then now you have this situation. And it's not great to hear what Adam said about the whole loving football thing. That's fine. I'm getting text from our friend Kyle Tucker about a good point about all this, which is with money, money probably keeps more guys in that wouldn't otherwise want to be in it, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like, well, I don't want to play football, but I mean, my gosh, I'm making this money. And it's not great to hear something like that, but it also it's a very different situation than these other ones. So although I think the question's fair, it's hard for me to look at it and think like Josh Heupel and his staff are just completely asleep at the wheel. I think they've had a bit of a run of bad luck here.
I'll be honest with you, and this is this in some ways it's hilarious to have this conversation in April, but I've thought this for a while. Like I've thought this throughout the transfer portal process, and then when you just kind of look at where they are right now at quarterback and just the whole, like, I don't know if they're going to be very good next year, right? Like I think their projected win total is like it's 7.5, and right now, Joe, honestly, I might go under. Like when you factor in the uncertainty at quarterback. Clearly they tried to address some things in the portal that didn't work. Now they've changed over a ton of their roster. Like there's a lot of different guys that they got coming in, and they were able to make, a push and add some guys on the defensive side of the ball. But like, especially if Coleman either doesn't play or doesn't want to play, or maybe isn't all that motivated. Like I still look at their edge rusher group and I'm like, it's not very good. Like there's not much proven that's there. Like, again, it's April, so I have no idea how this season is going to play out. But when you factor all that in, and then you look at Tennessee's schedule this year, like there's a chance they may not be very good. Like I'm talking 6 wins, 7 wins, something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think that they have. I mean, they have some good talent on the offensive line. I think the offensive line could be pretty good. Skill positions I like on offense. I mean, you need a third receiver, but I like their top 2 a lot. I think their back 7 on defense. There's talent there. There's some promising developments in the spring, but you have to have a monster edge rusher. Like he is so important to everything coming together. And then you have to have quarterback play that's good. And so those are 2 like massive questions. Like if both of those things got answered affirmatively, then I think Tennessee could be pretty good.
Yeah.
But also they could both be answered the way you don't want them to be answered. And then, you could be talking about a team that's like grinding it out to be 6-6.
And the bottom line is like, the last couple of years, they've gotten kind of a break on the scheduling front, right? Like, I mean, when you compare their schedule the last couple of years to some of the other teams in the SEC, it really hasn't been that tough. Well, look, it's, you never know exactly how the schedule is going to play out. But on paper, it's just a lot tougher this year for Tennessee. And now, I guess the good thing is they have a lot of those big games at home, so you feel good about that. But their quality of competition that they're going to be playing against this year, I think, is significantly better than it's been the last couple of years, which is going to require them to be significantly better if they're going to get to some of these same benchmarks that they've hit. And I got a tough time getting there right now.
No, totally understandable.
615-737-1025. Our phone number will take more of your reaction to Josh Heupel, to Tennessee. We'll take your thoughts on the Chaz Coleman situation. We got the Rex rant coming up at 7:45. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. From kickoff to last call, Tennessee Brew Works, the official craft beer of football offseason coverage here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up here in just about 10 minutes here on the program, taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. JC in Goodlettsville, Joe, says, if Tennessee doesn't get good quarterback play to make first downs, they'll wear down any defense with as shorter possessions as they have on 3 and outs. Fourth quarters would be ugly. We've talked about that before. Like it's important to be able to sustain some drives offensively if you're Tennessee. On the quarterback front, I mean, you got one of two of these younger guys are going to start, whether it's George McIntyre or Faison Brandon. You heard Adam Sparks a couple of segments ago say, hey, Josh Heupel like legitimately doesn't know who his quarterback is going to be coming up on opening day. That's not necessarily surprising, I guess, at this point, Joe. I mean, you're talking about a guy in George McIntyre who's been around for a year, didn't play hardly at all last year, certainly didn't play in any meaningful snaps last year, and then a highly touted true freshman in Faison Brandon coming in. So it doesn't surprise me on April the 14th that they have not nailed down who's going to be the starter yet. You know, I guess if you're Heupel, what I would say is, like, I would probably expect McIntyre to be ahead at this point, right? And if he's not, that probably speaks well to Faison Brandon moving forward. That I'm very interested to see. You know, by the time fall camp comes around, I think they open up with like you don't know if it's Furman or whoever it is they open up with, and then pretty much right off the bat after that, Joe, it's like Georgia Tech, and then I think their fourth game of the year is against Texas. So you got to figure it out pretty quickly when it comes to the quarterback part of this. I am very interested to see as we get into fall camp what that quarterback battle looks like and who ends up emerging as the starter, you know, so I guess for the first game, but also, you know, when the season really kicks off, that Georgia Tech game. That's a sneaky big game that a lot of people aren't really talking about when it comes to Tennessee because of their SEC schedule. That's a pretty big game early in the year against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and the quarterback thing, it's like, see, the thing with Sparks saying, you know, neither of them look good. There's two ways that this could be close. One is, you know, that McIntyre is on schedule, but Brandon's so talented, it's like, man, you have to consider it. And the other is Brandon looks about what you know, he's a freshman. He should be a senior in high school, and McIntyre maybe isn't as far along as you would like. It sounds like it's a little bit more than the latter than the former, and that's concerning. Now, again, there's a lot of time ahead, and it's not crazy for, like, again, McIntyre is also just wrapping up his freshman year in college.
Yep.
For that guy to come in and not be lighting up the world. But you'd rather it be close because, you know, guys are ahead of schedule than basically even that they're just on schedule. Because on schedule for quarterbacks that young in the SEC can be a problem, you know? So it's good to have the competition for sure, because you would think that both of them would be pushed to the max. This is where competition is so necessary, you know, when it's like when you're young, you have so much to learn, and it's like, look, the more time you spend in the film room, the more time, the harder you go with everything else you're doing, workouts all summer. That, like, you have to do that to have a chance. It's great to have the competition, but what does the final product turn into this season? I mean, you know, it is good to have also, because games are obviously just so different than anything else. It's good to have at least one game where you can try to figure it out. And I hear what Sparks is saying about not wanting to alternate. I don't think most coaches ever want to do that, but I also could see that being a consideration. And of course, you hope you get a chance for like a blowout where you get to see them both play a fair amount in at least that game.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Tennessee alternate quarterbacks before, a long time ago. But we saw the nice Brent Schaefer, Eric Ainge combo to begin a season one time.
Wow.
Like alternated. I don't know if it was quite alternating series. It was pretty close.
Yeah, that's generally not great. Kirk Cousins and Keith Nichol had basically an alternating series season until Cousins was just better and it kind of faded away. But I remember Ohio State had was it Stanley Jackson and Joe Germain, I think, did alternating series, but they
Not
were
advised.
no, not typically advisable. But you just want it, if it's going to stay close, you want it to stay close because they're both elevating. Because clearly, like that position right now, if they were playing SEC teams right now, I don't think it would go well for Tennessee. Can they get to the point where you can? Do they have enough elsewhere where you can get to the point where you could still win your share of games with a quarterback that young?
Well, and frankly, if you're a Tennessee fan, I think this is where you should probably give Heupel the benefit of the doubt, right? Like there's a lot up in the air about Heupel and the long-term direction of the program. And, I just talked about it. I don't know how good they're going to be this year. There's a lot riding on this year. But one thing Heupel has shown a pretty good proclivity of doing is developing quarterbacks, right? Like we've seen it with Hooker, and the more distance you get away from that, the more it kind of looks like a Josh Heupel thing, right? And this offense, and Aguilar and what he did coming in last year. So, like, I've got confidence that Heupel can get one of these two guys ready. It's just like how ready, like how good are they going to be early in their careers here with a schedule in the SEC that's going to be really demanding. Like it's going to be a huge test for whoever ends up winning this job. And it's got a chance to be a pretty fun fall from the standpoint of, like, you got a quarterback competition that's going to happen at Tennessee between McIntyre and Brandon. And then at Vanderbilt, like, is Jared Curtis going to find his way onto the field immediately as a true freshman? Like, is Blaze Berlowitz going to start at quarterback to begin the year for Vanderbilt? Then you kind of go from there. Like, there's a scenario where you got, two local Nashville kids starting at the two major football programs in the SEC in our state.
Yeah, no doubt. Very interesting. And Vanderbilt, of course, Tennessee now has wrapped up. Vanderbilt is going at 1:00 Saturday for a little public display of that situation and life after Diego Pavia and all that. So there's no shortage of intrigue for sure with these two SEC teams in the state. It's also possible that we could be talking about two teams that are fighting to make bowl games, right? I mean, that's probably, you said Tennessee's.
I think it's 7.5.
What's Vanderbilt's? Do you know?
I need to look. I do not know off the top of my head.
My guess would be, probably 6.5 or 5.5 would be my guess. Which maybe that's a little bit of disrespect because it wasn't just Diego Pavia and a bunch of dudes. Like Clark Lee has built up, a good football team with a lot of good football players, and there's some good guys coming back. But still, the quarterback position was so good for both teams last year, and that's a point that Sparks made too, is like, that was a heck of a job by Heupel with all the questions about Aguilar and the fact that they whiffed on a bunch of other guys they tried to pay the world to come in here. And for him to play the way he did, it's pretty impressive.
5.5 for Vanderbilt, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
So there you go. 7.5 for Tennessee, 5.5 for Vanderbilt. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Rexrode's a bum.
You guys, just all of you, are so damn soft.
Joe Rexrode is a dummy and a top 5 troll in Nashville, but not the best, as I know he aspires to be.
You weren't monitoring your tone very much.
We don't know what's in his head. We don't know, all the tattoos that may have Kaharski on them on his body.
Sounded like you were going to praise me.
No matter where Rexrode works, he'll always be a Michigan State bleep writer.
We had a love fest. We all kind of gathered around. We hugged each other.
Can you just try to be a little nicer?
You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry.
It is time for the Rex Rant, brought to you by Rapid Response Generators. Power when it matters the most. Check them out today at rapidresponsegenerators.com. Joe Rexrode, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to that was lovely as always. I'm gonna take this back to Coach Mack. We talked about him earlier. I did ask for people to let us know stories. I've been reading like so much stuff. I mean, Kaharski had a nice piece on him. Jimmy Wyatt, an extensive piece here with including like some of his sayings, which is great, like to keep your powder dry.
Oh yeah.
But the not yes, hell yes. I mean, that's got to be the best, right? And then, stuff like, he's willing to throw his face in the briar patch, just like stuff you're like, wait, I don't know exactly what that means. But like Wyatt's story, it quotes a lot of people, including Mike Singletary. I mean, some pretty impressive stuff, like Singletary about because Coach Matt came into the Bears in 1986. They just won it all. He's the linebackers coach. He's got Mike Singletary and Wilbur Montgomery, like, hey, here's this dude from like Missouri or wherever he coached the year before. He's your coach now, and ended up making this huge impact on these guys. But Pompey story, as I said earlier, Dan Pompey, the Athletic. I think Pompey is probably the best writer of people in the NFL. He knows everyone, has forever, and he covered Dave, Coach Mack going back to the 80s when he was a beat writer. But like some of these stories, for example, there's a story that Dan tells about a caller to the radio show that Coach Mack was on. He had to give up his season tickets because of health issues that led to financial issues. Well, what does Dave do? He quietly arranges for him to keep the ticket. There's a tornado. We know the tornado outbreak, the tornadoes that hit here 6 years ago, as we remember well in the program. And someone went to visit Coach Mack, and he had no furniture in his living room. He had a house with no furniture because he had donated to a family that had lost theirs. There's so many incredible stories. Pat Tillman, of course, played for him. And when Pat Tillman said he was going to enlist in the U.S. Army, which was, just a few months after 9/11, McGinnis, of course, supported him and all that. And Tillman, they had talked about Tillman coming back after Tillman was killed in 2004 in Afghanistan. But they had talked about him coming back. He said he was only going to come back if he could play for McGinnis, And the one thing that really hits me about this too is like Coach Mack, he's like this old school guy, obviously, right? This old school Texas guy, Texas football. I mean, like that's like, that's like the core of football, right? And he was a high energy, big personality, took over a room, big voice. Here's a quote from Ron Rivera, who was also, by the way, on those Bears teams. He said, quote, "He never denigrated you. He always built you up and got you to realize your potential, but he always challenged you," end quote. Which is interesting too, to think about like what you think of in terms of old school coaches, but it just like he just, again, I only knew him after coaching, but he just radiated positivity. And, that's also, I think, notable in terms of maybe going against the grain a little bit of like coaches of his era. So there's just a lot out there on him. And, man, there's a lot of people who are missing him. Waves of guys came in. Chuck Cecil from Arizona. And I think the quote he gave Pompey, which is, quote, "Football's a better world because of him," was a pretty damn good quote. Jack in Nashville said, RIP to one of the best, Coach Mack. My favorite part of every one of his broadcasts was his disdain for the referees, knew them all by name and didn't like a single one. So
That's true.
So maybe he saved a little bit of that venom just for the guys in the stripes.
Yeah, he was not afraid to call out the guys in the stripes. I do, as you mentioned, there's so many good stories that are being written about Coach Mack throughout all this. And, Jimmy Wyatt, and he goes through, he's just hears from a lot of different people at TennesseeTitans.com. I do want to read kind of this final quote from Mike Keith, and who says, he was visiting Dave McGinnis in his final days in the hospital. And he says, he was leaving the room and he turned around and said, as I was leaving the room, I asked, who are we taking at number 4 coming up in the draft? And Mike Keith said, as sick as he was with an oxygen mask on, Coach Mack managed to answer with, whoever's left after number 3. Coach Mack was still Coach Mack until the end. And we were all lucky enough to love him, everyone. So that kind of sums up Coach Mack right there. Yeah, I think they'll probably take whoever's left after number 3 there, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, no, they had there's some stuff going around too on some of their interactions, which are absolutely hilarious. Ash, oh my gosh. Ashley, who really went with Mike Keith, to Knoxville. She put in the Mac cam. So, which I don't remember. I don't know when exactly that was, but Ashley Farrell, she tweeted this out. Because she's associate director of VFL Film. She went with Mike to, but she put in here we go. August of 2024, best decision I've made was to add a Coach Matt cam in the broadcast booth. So there's
pretty good.
Yeah. So go to at Ashley N. Farrell, Farrell. She's got some great stuff too. But yeah, it's one of those things that's just shocking out of nowhere. I mean, expect a guy to be doing Titans, doing this stuff for another 10 years, but what an impact he made on people.
Yep, no doubt about it. Dave McGinnis passing away at the age of 74. I've got some of your texts, your stories about Coach Matt coming in throughout the show. We'll continue to take those on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We will get back into the Nashville Predators coming up next. They are eliminated from playoff contention after their loss to the San Jose Sharks last night. We'll get into the game and then throw the question back out there. You got a new general manager coming in. Now's the time to start looking ahead for the Nashville Predators. What should the plan be? We'll take your thoughts on all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are brought to you by Green Ventures Landscaping. Get thicker grass, better color, and fewer bare spots with turf application. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. The Nashville Predators, last night, Joe, eliminated from playoff contention. They lose 3-2 to the San Jose Sharks, and the LA Kings taking down the Seattle Kraken last night, which means the Predators are out. They will miss out on the playoffs, and the field is set in both the West and the East. Now, all the matchups are not set, but the teams have been set in the West and the East. So the Predators, obviously a very disappointing night last night. Joe, they just really, for I'd say 50 minutes, 53 minutes, somewhere around there, like they got nothing going offensively, and they looked a little disjointed. They had a couple of chances earlier in the game where they just either missed the net on or just didn't quite get enough of it. Nedeljkovic for San Jose made some big saves in the game when he had to, but he didn't have to all that much. It was a disappointing game offensively for the Predators. And I mean, frankly, they weren't all that great defensively either. I mean, Onanen, the first goal that Onanen gave up wasn't very good. It's probably one he would like back. He also made, 4 or 5 saves before that were pretty high quality, that kept the Predators in it for a while. The first period, I thought the Predators were awful. Like they were all over the place. They couldn't get anything going in the offensive zone. They were mishandling the puck. They were giving up odd man rushes. They, just weren't covering anybody. Like it was a bad start to the game, but they got through it. Nothing after one. And it was like, okay, well, maybe the nerves got to them or whatever it is, and you could settle in here in the second period and be better. And they just never really got there last night, Joe. And it's, look, obviously on the surface itself, missing the playoffs and getting this close is disappointing. I think it's more disappointing when you factor in, for the most part, how well they've played over the last few weeks, and to go out with nowhere near your best last night, I think is a tough pill to swallow for that team.
Yeah, it's really surprising. You were talking about it yesterday on the show. Like, you add everything up, and you kind of expect them to pounce on them. They'd hammered them last couple times. They obviously have dominated the Sharks. Multiple people have brought up today that Vingan jinxed them, apparently, by mentioning. I think
everybody mentioned it, didn't they?
I'd love to blame him. I really would. But yeah, I think we've talked about that streak about 1 million times. I mean, this isn't like a no-hitter, guys. Like, it's just one of those things you talk about. You should have played better. And I don't know. Hockey is, I mean, you know better than I do. It's weird how sometimes it's like a few shifts can go a certain way, and then it's like it takes you like a intermission to like get it back together. You know what I mean? Like the territorial.
I almost thought they were too focused, if that makes any sense. Like yesterday at the morning skate, and a couple of people who cover them on a daily basis, we were talking about it after the game, or after the skate. Like, you've been to morning skates, Joe. You know what it's like. Like you walk in, and like even morning skates in the playoffs, a lot of times it's relatively light in there, right? Like it's laid back. They're not always like yucking it up or anything, but it's pretty laid back. It's dead quiet in there yesterday, and there was like just you could feel an intensity to it, right? And I wondered at the time. I was like, well, this could be either a really good thing, and they're just totally locked in, or it could be bad. And I don't want to oversimplify it and say it just comes down to that, but I don't know. It just felt like the whole day, and I think it played out that way in the first period, that it almost felt like they were, too locked in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because I can think back to like you go back to like the 2017 run where you're at every single morning skate, everything. And I feel like there are a lot of those morning skates were just screwing around almost,
Yeah.
It's like a team trying to make a run to the cup. But that's also, I don't know, that's kind of strange to me, given one thing you could definitely always say about this team is that they have veterans who have been through a lot of stuff. You got multiple cup winners on this team who are still playing at a very high level. And I guess, you kind of expect stuff like that to be what it should be. But sometimes, it's human nature to get amped up. It's human nature. it's one of the great things about hockey too. The whole grip in the stick too tightly. I mean, that's a thing, man. You know, and the teams that can find that balance of like intensity, but also not being overly intense, I guess, or just overly worried about making a mistake, things like that, are the teams that win the high pressure games. But this team has just won so many of them recently to even get to this point.
One thing we didn't mention a ton earlier. So they're down 1-0 in the game. It's in the third period, and there was an icing call that I just did not understand. And basically, the puck comes into the zone, and Nedeljkovic reaches out his paddle and he touches it. Now, honestly, I need to go back and find it because at the time I was so focused on the idea of the goalie touching the puck and them blowing the whistle for icing. And then I was looking at the reaction, everybody. Like Burnett was going nuts on the bench. Stamkos was in the ear of the officials all night long. And I mean all night long. I mean, he was giving it to him all night long. Like O'Reilly was going crazy. Forsberg was going crazy. And Nedeljkovic touched the puck, and they blew the whistle for icing. The faceoff goes all the way down to the Preds D zone. They actually got out of the D zone, and then Barron, just a brutal turnover, and it led to the odd man rush the other way, and Celebrini scored from the slot, and that's when it got to 2-0, and it felt like it was over at that point. So I asked Burnett after the game about like the explanation he got on the icing call, and he said that the officials told him they thought the puck crossed the goal line before the goalie touched it, which if it did, that would be icing. I just need to go back and look and see if that actually happened because it didn't look like it did to me in real time, but I haven't really seen a replay of it. But a lot of people very upset, including the entire Predators bench on that icing call last night.
Yeah. Well, and things like that are going to happen. And, you know, you got a soft goal. I mean, it's still, I don't know. I still feel like I think Brunette did the right thing. Going with Ananen over Saros. I don't think that's like the point of second guessing. I thought there was some interesting conversation after our show yesterday about from Max Hers Next Man Up about, you know, the possibility of just like not having Saros play. This guy who's, you know, the big picture things that you think about, right? But I think that was, you know, the right thing. I guess we'll see Saros in the finale, right?
That would be my guess.
Probably makes sense to do it, but yeah, like Jeff says, like it is. I get it. It's like he's like, guys, the whole season's on the line. The coach says the team just couldn't get in their game quick enough. Yeah, I understand the frustration. Let's also remember, like, they're not that good. You know, like the margin for error also like is not large and never has been for this team.
Oh, and frankly, like sometimes I think we read too much into what coaches and players say after things like this. Like, right. I don't know that they necessarily have. I don't think they've got a good explanation as to why they didn't play well last night. Like, I think some of it is exactly what I've said. I think that they were way too. It's almost like you can be too hyper focused. Like, I think they were. Like, I think early in the game, you had a combination of guys in some cases trying to do too much, where you had shooting lanes available and you tried to make that one extra pass and all of a sudden it's turned over, right? Like it's going the other way. So rather than creating a chance on a shot, you're trying to make the perfect play and it ends up getting no play out of it. Like I think there was a lot of that, and it just kind of felt like, I don't know, it felt like, you know, Forsberg, I thought in the first half of the game, like he had a couple opportunities to pull the trigger and he just didn't do it, right? Like and Stamkos, you know, had a couple of good looks late in the game that just missed. Like he went high on one, and then he got set up for a one-timer at the end of the power play, and he fanned on the shot, which, I mean, you just don't see him do very often. So it was just a combination of things that they were just off last night.
And maybe the explanation is what Ryan O'Reilly said, which is that he's garbage. Maybe it's just that simple. You know, Ryan O'Reilly taking the entire blame at the end of a season in which I would say probably one of the really impressive individual seasons in the league this year, given like what he's done in every facet of the game and his second best offensive season of his career.
So the Predators are eliminated from postseason contention. They will close out the regular season on Thursday against Anaheim. And then the attention shifts fully to the next general manager. What's the next general manager going to do? What is the plan of action whenever whoever they hire gets named and comes into the job? What do you think the plan should be for the next general manager? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I got some tickets to give away, a pair of tickets to Team Boxing League as the Nashville Smash fakes the Phoenix Fury at Municipal Auditorium coming up this Friday night. Caller number 2 at 615-737-1025 will win a pair of tickets coming up at Municipal Auditorium this Friday night. Caller number 2 at 615-737-1025. Preds lose last night. They are eliminated from playoff contention, and now the eyes move to the future, and the immediate future is, what are they going to do at general manager? That is the next step for the Nashville Predators. They have to hire a general manager, and then we're going to see what that general manager's plan is when it comes to the roster. What is that general manager's plan when it comes to the coaching staff and Andrew Burnett? And we'll take your thoughts on all that in the meantime at 615-737-1025. Chip from Mount Juliet says this. Says, my take, the new GM should be announced soon. Says, fire Burnett and staff, bring in coaching candidates, hire the coach. Number 2, evaluate and clean house of Preds management staff. Number 3, begin player evals. Marchessault needs to be the first one to go. And number 4, trade Ryan O'Reilly if big offers come in, as well as other tenured players that are willing to waive no trade clauses. The approach of this general manager, Joe, is going to be really interesting here. I think particularly if it goes the way I think it will go and the way that most Predators fans hope it goes, and that is you're going outside the organization and bringing in some fresh eyes to this thing, whether that's an assistant GM on a current team or a GM that has experience in the league that is kind of a retread. We'll see which way they go. You're looking at this roster, and I think it's interesting from a couple of different standpoints. Number one, they do have a deep prospect pool that, as we've talked extensively about, is probably missing, unless Brady Martin's this guy, is probably missing that top of the top, cream of the crop prospect that really sends it into kind of that next level. But you do have a lot of promising up-and-coming players that are at your disposal if you're this new general manager. In the meantime, you have O'Reilly and Stamkos and Forsberg and Yossi and Marchessault and Shea and all these guys that are in their 30s that, to their credit, I think, a lot of those guys pulled the rope and got you back to this point and made it interesting down the stretch, but also aren't getting any younger. And at some point here in the not too distant future, and I'm talking about, next year, you're going to have to start seeing some of these guys, if they're going to be here, downshift in the lineup, right? Like, we've talked about that with O'Reilly for a while. I don't know if they've got anybody that's ready to step up into that role right now. But, I mean, look, Stamkos isn't getting any younger. Marchessault's not getting any younger. And you're going to have to start filling some spots with some of those guys. So the next general manager has some decisions to make in terms of, forget long-term. Obviously, long-term, they've got decisions to make. But as soon as next year, like, what do you want to be next year? Like, what's your plan for how you want to approach next season? And that's everything from the coach, from the construction of your roster. Is it more beneficial to basically keep doing what they're doing, and that is have the the veteran players kind of carry the load as your young players gradually come up? Or does the next GM look at it and say, you know what, it's time to thrust some of these younger guys into bigger roles with this team and either move on from some of these veteran guys or downshift them in the lineup? That part of it's very fascinating to me in terms of the immediacy of it, of what this next GM thinks they're going to be next year.
Yeah. Well, and I think really, like, some of the answer about next year might just come down to O'Reilly, right? As I just mentioned, tremendous season. If he's on this team next year, like, there's a certain, like, the floor is like, it's not going to be that low, right? Like, if you have these, generally this core of veterans, like you said, yeah, you want them to downshift, although I don't know how next year that immediately happens. But, like, that's obviously, I mean, when Barry Trotz signed Ryan O'Reilly, he talked about certainly he would have downshifted by now, right?
Yeah,
but
that was 4 years ago.
Right.
It will have been 4 years ago next year.
Yeah, but again, he also just had his second best season, which I guess maybe to him still means he's only had one good season in the NHL. But but like, if you move him, then I don't think you can, if the new GM finds a deal that's like he can't refuse, I don't see how the Preds aren't bad next year, right? And maybe it's worthwhile.
Maybe. I mean, like I think people have got to get the term full rebuild out of their head. Because number one, I don't think it's happening. And number two, like when your prospect pool is as deep as theirs is, you've already started in some ways the rebuild. So it's not going to be a full rebuild. Like
you actually don't want it to be.
Like you don't really at this point. Like I understand what people are saying. They want the younger guys in the lineup, but that's not a full rebuild. That's the next phase of the rebuild that's already started. So I we got to clarify that. Like we got to eliminate full rebuild from the lexicon. Like we're already past that at this point.
So for next year though, like if O'Reilly's on this team and he has a season like this, like I think the floor is probably flirting with the playoffs, right? I mean, I think again, I'm also projecting like Stamkos here and having another really productive season. Does he build on this? We don't know who the coach is. There's a lot of questions, but certainly they could be a team. And the thing is, that will piss off some people that they are flirting with the playoffs if that's how it goes and they don't move O'Reilly. But like it's actually like, again, they are in the process of bringing these guys up. At some point, you're going to be really young and you're going to have a lot of cap space. And then that's when you try to supplement with the young guys. But next year, now, if you move O'Reilly, then I think they're, I think like down the middle, like what are they doing?
Well, tell me what flirting with the playoffs means next year, because to me, there's two guys right now that if they're on the team next year, I think people totally shift their mindset as to what flirting with the playoffs mean. If they flirt like this year, they just flirted with the playoffs, and it was O'Reilly and Forsberg and Stamkos and all those guys leading the way. Joe, if they have the exact same season next year, let's say they have the exact same year, but Matthew Wood is in the top 6 the whole year, and Brady Martin makes the team out of camp and plays the whole year with the Predators next year.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to view it totally differently. Like it'll be totally different in the way people view it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the first of those is,
it's going to happen.
I think is likely, and the second of those I don't know, but certainly that would be a big. And again, then you're going to get to the point with some of these guys. It's like, okay, so how, as we go, like how good are we talking about? Did they finally have guys who are like going to be more than just they can play in the league guys?
Right.
Are they difference makers? And then you're going to age out with some of these other guys. And again, the new GM is going to hopefully be in a position with a really good young core, and now the ability to go out and supplement and maybe make some big deals that totally change the look of the team. And they don't have to go through years of being terrible for this to happen.
I said it earlier in the show. I think moving Jonathan Marchessault needs to be a priority for the next GM. I do. Like it just hasn't worked, and we're 2 years in at this point, and he's not getting any younger, and it just hasn't been a good fit. And I think a big part of that is the Predators just haven't had the center depth that they've needed. Now, they went through a stretch where in the last part of the year, Marchessault played better when he was on a line with Forsberg and Matthew Wood. But I just think, people asked about the contract earlier. Would the Predators have to retain salary on Marchessault? Maybe, but I also think that there's a chance. I mean, the salary is not that bad. I mean, you're talking over $5 million, but it's the cap's going up. It's just, and he's a guy that I do think if you're a team around the league, you look at your center situation and you say, well, we feel way better about our center situation than Nashville felt about theirs. And I just think he'd be a better fit elsewhere. So maybe not. Like maybe you would be able to move him. You're not going to get a ton for him, but maybe you were able to move on from the contract and he ends up somewhere else and is a better fit somewhere else with a team that's stronger down the middle. Like that would be, and I know he's got a no move. He made that very clear. But that would be a conversation that I'd be having pretty quickly if I'm the next general manager coming in.
Yeah, no, 100%. Texas says, I highly doubt they're hiring a GM to come in and break it down to the studs. They're going to hire someone to retool it to compete, but it must be an outside hire. Must use the ridiculous amount of picks to go get young NHL-ready players. Otherwise, the Trotz moves were pointless. Someone also asked earlier, Robby, like, did Trotz leave this? Are the Preds better off now than when Trotz came in? I would still argue yes. Like if Brady Martin is going to work out, if Brady Martin is going to be what they hope, I mean, the prospect pool, as we've talked about, is top 5. So I think overall, yes, even though it's been a disappointment on the ice.
Yeah, it depends on how you view it. Like the prospect
Right.
pool is unquestionably in a better spot. Like it's not arguable. It's in a better spot than it was when Barry Trotz took over. Now, from a pure result standpoint, Joe, they're basically exactly where they've been for going on 7 years at this point, which is right there, either in the middle or last year being the exception where they're at the bottom of the league, right? So that is ultimately what people are growing frustrated with, which I understand, and what's going to have to change here moving forward.
Yeah. Now, there's another comment I think there's an interesting question I want to get to on the text line.
We will do that coming up next. Take more of your thoughts on the Predators and the task in front of the next general manager now that we know that there will be no playoffs for the second year in a row for the Nashville Predators. More coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Today, the Nashville Sounds take on Worcester Red Sox at First Horizon Park. First pitch at 6:35. Catch all the action on Sports Talk 830, presented by Family Leisure and Social Cantina. Taking your thoughts on the Nashville Predators at 615-737-1025, our phone number. By the way, Smashville Live tonight, the final Smashville Live of the season. We're going to be out live at Brewhouse South at Cool Springs at 6 o'clock. Tonight will be Fedor Svechkov and Joachim Kimmel that will be the guest. Smashville Live presented by Gary Force Acura. So last Smashville Live of the season coming up tonight, and Preds will close out the regular season tomorrow, taking on the Anaheim Ducks. A lot of your thoughts on the text line in terms of the general manager and what they should do coming into all this. One texter, Joe, says they should go after Austin Matthews. Says he's rumored to want out of Toronto. Got the cap space. Just go do it. Without
Okay.
We had Jim Diamond on the show a few weeks ago. He has been consistent on this plan. Like he is hell bent on the Predators offer sheeting Jason Robertson this offseason from Dallas.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. Why not?
Hey,
I'm going to doubt the Austin Matthews things come to fruition. But I mean, in all seriousness, like the Star situation with Robertson is interesting because they just have like no cap space. So
yeah,
may as well figure it out. You can figure it out if you're them, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, stick it to them at the very least. This texture, this is an interesting thought, which I think is a big picture philosophical thing, but he says Brady Martin, he or she says Brady Martin has to be on the roster all season next year. The days of Nashville leaving their top 15 picks and juniors at the AHL for 4 or 5 years needs to end immediately with the new GM. Overcooking is a thing of the past. It's a younger league now, and seemingly past Poyles and Trotz's way of thinking of. One quick thing I would throw on that is I think, again, people are not remembering that a lot of these picks everybody was screaming for just weren't that good. That's the only thing that about that. It's an interesting thing about the league now and overcooking. I mean, I tend to kind of agree with Trotz's way of thinking in general on that. But one thing to remember is, like, if you're going back and saying, the Preds should have brought in this guy or that guy, go back through the guys who they should have brought up earlier. They just didn't pan out. They weren't as good as everybody hoped they would be, which is part of why this team is where it is. Yeah, partly so. And by the way, I mean, Matthew Wood just basically played the entire season for him. So there's that. Right? There is that.
So, I mean, I think it depends on the guy. He played the entire season for him. Brady Martin made the hockey team out of camp. So Brady Martin was not ready to play in the NHL this year. Now, is Brady Martin going to be ready to play in the NHL next year? I hope so, right? Like, you're talking about a top 5 pick, and hopefully there's some physical growth that's taking place and his game has matured over the last year, and then you're good to go there. But I don't know. Like, I'm not sitting here today acting like it's a guarantee that Brady Martin's going to be on the team next year. I think so. Like, I think that would be good if he was, but I don't know that that's going to be the case. Look, Brady Martin's is his own thing. Like, that's a huge question heading into next year. Here's some bigger questions for you, or at least as big to me in the short term, like just purely next year of it all. Like, is Kimmel ready to be a full-time NHL player? Because quite frankly, I've not seen a whole lot at the NHL level yet. Now, did LaRue in any way take a meaningful step forward over the last few weeks? It's been a pretty bad year for Svechkov, right? Let's call it what it is. Like, he's been pretty bad this year. So that part's concerning. Is Tanner Molendijk, after, an up and down year in Milwaukee, is he ready to be on the team next year? Like, there's a lot beyond Brady Martin that, to differing degrees, you need to start to see it with some of these guys. And I thought Barry Trotz said something interesting a few weeks ago after they signed Svechkov and LaRue to new deals. They got a lot of prospects. They got a ton of prospects, as we know, and they got more draft picks coming up. And the bottom line is there's only so many contracts you get to hand out in an organization. Not everybody's going to get one. So, like, to me, it's time to start looking at some of these prospects that have been around for a minute. And it's time to, or get off the pot, man. Like, it's time to go next year.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about having the prospects, the picks they do is, like, you can change things out. And maybe that's something that is coming with the new GM. Someone on the text line also talking about, like, all the scouts, and again, that's just a really interesting thing when it comes to, I think there's some good people working in this organization right now. The idea of, like, just totally clean house. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think it should happen, but you got to be able to identify who's good and who needs to be replaced. Not easy.
No, it's not easy. And then there's the other part of this, Joe. What does all this mean for Andrew Burnett, right? Like that's probably the most immediate part of this is whenever they hire this new general manager. And I don't know if that's going to, I mean, look, they've been interviewing people for a while now at this point, right? I would assume that the entire point, Joe, of getting a head start on the interview process was to go ahead and find somebody. So my hope is that they've got somebody here in like the next week or the next couple of weeks.
You would think.
They don't necessarily have to, but to me, that's kind of the whole point of starting when they started, right? Is to go ahead and be the first one into all this. So I'm hoping that over the course of the next week or two here that they've got somebody named. And then, Joe, pretty quickly after that, you're going to have to make a decision on Andrew Burnett as to whether or not he's going to be your head coach next year.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. You would hope that it's just ready, just about locked and loaded and ready to go here and get moving on. Again, all these things, Burnett, the evaluation of the organization and everybody in personnel and what you're doing, who needs to stay, who needs to go, what you're changing. And so you're totally, ready for the draft. I mean, and then obviously start getting into all the different possibilities with other GMs about some of your veterans and some of the deals that you can make. There's a lot to be done. So yeah, all this time you would hope has been used productively.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know what it's going to look like with Burnett. Conventional wisdom tells me in this league, when you bring in a new general manager, and particularly when you bring in a new general manager of a team that didn't make the playoffs, that typically does not bode well for the head coach in place, right? Like that just typically doesn't. Now, you'd have to tell me who they hire at general manager and kind of what their background is, and do they have any familiarity at all with Andrew Burnett, or is it somebody who's never even been associated with Andrew Burnett? Like there's a lot of things about like the hire of the general manager that's important there. If it's one of these guys, Joe, that's been a general manager before that has extensive experience in the league, they probably know a lot of coaches. So that probably makes it more likely that Burnett's gone at that point. Like there's so much about like who specifically they hire, I think, that factors into this. And we mentioned it earlier with Burnett. Like Burnett, I think when you break down his tenure here, it's 3 pretty different years that all have one common theme to it, right? Like I think his first year, they overachieved. They got in the playoffs. He was a Jack Adams finalist for Coach of the Year. His second year, there were all these expectations heading into it, and they fell flat on their face. And this year, it looked like they were going to fall flat on their face again. They salvaged it and got themselves back to playing meaningful hockey in the last week of the regular season and came up just short. The common link in all of them is they've started the season each year horribly. Like even the year they made the playoffs, they got off to a bad start. I don't remember exactly what their record was, but I want to say it was something like 6-11-2 or something like that. It's like, so they've gotten off to pretty horrific starts every year under Andrew Burnett. And that at some point, if you're going to keep him, that has to change. But I also think you got to look at that if you're the next GM.
Yeah, for sure. Saros also has been a slow starter, but that wasn't that has been so obviously you can look at those things to some extent as hand in hand, but that doesn't explain all of it. And I think Burnett, the way this season went, which is basically he's coaching and turning things around after a lot of coaches would have been fired in a lot of places, but he definitely, I think helped himself in some way with that, with the way that they rebounded, the way they stuck together, got better, started playing better in November, but then stuck even after the trading deadline, losing some key role players and making this push. It helps him, I suppose, potentially with the new GM. But yeah, it's just still hard for me to believe that a new GM doesn't have someone in mind. I mean, Trotz came in and really kind of left it up in the air that John Hines might keep the job. I mean, he was kind of in limbo for a while. Then it hires Burnett eventually, and Burnett was obviously a guy who he had back in long ago as a player and all that. Like everybody has people, right? It's just, you would assume whoever's coming in here would have a short list of of possible coaches. And for as well as Brunette, I think, acquitted himself this year, turning it around, I don't know that there's anything you look at and say, well, we just have to keep that coach.
One texter says, how did the scouting department miss Wyatt Johnston and pick Fedor Svechkov? Well, Wyatt Johnston went 23rd overall. If you redrafted it today, Wyatt Johnston would probably go number 1 in that draft.
So a lot of people missed him.
A lot of people missed on Wyatt Johnston. I mean, sometimes that happens. I mean, it's no different than
Robertson is another guy.
Well, Robertson's another guy, but I mean, look, and we've talked about this example before, but I mean, Nikita Kucherov was drafted in 58th overall in 2011. I think Mika Salamaki got taken a few spots above Nikita Kucherov, and you could blast the Predators for that, and that's fine. But then you have to turn around and blast everybody else, including, by the way, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who took other people before Nikita Kucherov in that draft. They just got lucky that they ended up picking him at 58th overall. So, I think with those guys, it's easy to look back at how it's gone so far, but that's part of what makes drafting 17 and 18-year-olds such a crapshoot.
Yes. You just want to be – you need to be right sometimes and lucky sometimes, and with forwards, they just haven't been.
They have not. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Final segment of the day coming up next. A lot more of your thoughts to get to on the Preds. We'll continue that discussion. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Preds fall last night to San Jose. They are eliminated from postseason contention, and one more game on Thursday, and then it is into the offseason for the Nashville Predators as they are set to hire a new general manager, and then we'll see what that means for Andrew Burnett and the coaching staff as well. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Mike in Lebanon says, I feel bad for Bruno because I don't think Trotz gave him the right players. One texter says, we'll see how Hagens goes moving forward. That's probably the most anybody can really second guess when it comes to the draft pick is Brady Martin versus James Hagens. That will certainly be the one I think people look at most closely over the next little bit here, Joe. Is so you're talking, top 5 pick in Brady Martin. Hagens was on the board. You had the chance to take him and you didn't. So how do those two compare moving forward? I mean, Martone off to a good start in his NHL career with Philly. Yep. He's a winger, so it's not the same.
Right.
So you got to keep that in mind. But all those guys that kind of got picked right around there, I think will be matched up together and compared.
Absolutely. Yeah, and look, if Martin doesn't become at least a really strong number 2 center, productive, consistent player at that level, then that's a huge disappointment. I mean, some of those guys are going to be productive NHL players, no, without question. Like you said, you probably need to look at it from the lens of a team that is so light down the middle that had to address that part of the team, as opposed to comparing to a Martone who, has done some pretty special stuff right away already with the Flyers.
Yeah.
But I'll be really surprised based on everything, including the most recent evaluation of people, if Martin isn't that. I think he'll be that. You still also that doesn't solve all your problems. I mean, someone earlier texting like, well, they need to get a Celebrini, and it's like when are they ever in position? I'm like, well, they were in position last year, but there was no Celebrini. 1, and 2, they the lottery didn't treat them well, so it's so hard to get that level of player. But can you get, if Brady Martin is what they hope, can you have a few of those at different spots in your top 6?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, by the way, people have asked about this. The Predators, I believe, right now technically are 11th from the bottom in the NHL. They are only a point behind New Jersey. So if they win, they'll pass New Jersey on assuming New Jersey loses their next game, they could pass New Jersey coming up in their next game. So right now you would be 11th if the lottery was just straight up. The maximum you can move up is 10 spots. So only the bottom 11 teams are eligible to win the first overall pick. So that means if they move up out of 11th to 12th with a win, let's say they win Thursday and New Jersey loses and they get it to 12th, then they have no chance to win the top pick at that point. So I'm sure I know what Predators fans will be rooting for coming up on Thursday. Just play without goalie.
It's time for a 1-game tank.
Yep.
The 1-game tank.
Joe, I had 1 point last night, had talked myself into the Predators were going to win, Anaheim was going to lose, and it was going to be Predators, Anaheim, winning you're in for tomorrow, but the Predators had to win the game in regulation. So I talked myself into tie game in the third period with like 5 minutes left, and Bruno's going to pull the goalie because they have to they have to win before getting it into overtime. I was fully talked into it. Never got there.
That could have been fun.
Could have
been fun. A lot of things could have been fun.
That's right.
But they did not end up fun.
Going to be a long off season. We will be around to discuss it all. We'll take your thoughts on the Predators all day long here on 102.5 The Game. Next Man Up with Jake Lyman is coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock.